It is Sunday, the 26th of March, 2017. I'm in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I'm just starting up my alternative spiritual practice of protesting against Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy. And we're looking at the Unitarian Church of Montreal's wayside pulpit, or what I sometimes like to call the wayward pulpit, because what's often posted here and on other Unitarian Universalist churches' wayside pulpits actually is betrayed by what, actually the actual actions of, members of Unitarian churches, including the Unitarian Church of Montreal. What we're looking at right now is the mission statement of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, if I'm not mistaken. And on the surface it looks, quite nice. Our spiritual community welcomes, nurtures, inspires, challenges. Together we take action in the world. It sounds all very nice and fluffy bunny good stuff, but it isn't really, because it's totally devoid of any moral content. I mean, this could be interpreted in two very different ways. It could be interpreted in the fluffy bunny, good stuff way that I'm sure the Montreal Unitarians want people to interpret it in, but it can also be interpreted in exactly the opposite manner, because it really does not say what Unitarians welcome, doesn't say what they nurture, doesn't say what they inspire, doesn't say what they challenge, doesn't say what kind of actions they take in the world. And the fact of the matter is that Montreal Unitarians, and in fact other Unitarian Universalists, welcome all kinds of immoral, unethical, borderline criminal, actually criminal, and quite frankly batshit crazy things. We got some wind problems here. The picket signs are getting blown around, the freestanding ones. So that gives you an idea of just how negatively this can be interpreted. The same thing goes for nurturers. Montreal Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists more generally sometimes nurture things that are immoral, unethical, borderline criminal, actually criminal, batshit crazy, and so on. Inspires, same principle. Challenge as well, here to get the negative element of that, you got to go to Unitarian Universalists challenging good stuff, like obviously challenges means, we challenge bad stuff, like I'm doing right now, actually. But of course, in terms of showing the downside of this vague mission statement, it needs to be shown that Unitarian Universalists challenge things that they shouldn't be challenging. Such as my protest against Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy, and so on. Unitarian Universalists, unfortunately, challenge people who bring complaints against clergy who are guilty of clergy misconduct of one kind or another. Now, of course, it's reasonable to have a certain amount of skepticism. You don't want to have a guilty until proven innocent kind of attitude, although that's kind of the attitude they have against people who bring complaints against the church, that they're guilty of trying to just be troublemakers, until they're proven innocent of not being troublemakers. But when somebody, and not just myself, files a complaint against a minister for immoral, unethical, borderline criminal, actually criminal behavior, very often they are challenged by the church leadership. The church leadership protects its ministers and challenges the whistleblowers and victims and critics and so on. So basically, and this has happened repeatedly. In fact, I'd say that the Unitarian Universalist Association falsely accusing me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel. That's a challenge. It's a legal challenge against me telling the truth about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists and so on. And in fact, the Unitarian Church of Montreal in the past has repeatedly challenged my right to protest here. They've repeatedly brought false criminal accusations against me, and in fact I was actually arrested at one time and charged with violating section 176.3 of the Canadian Criminal Code, which prohibits just a second here, I can't remember the exact words, but it basically prohibits disrupting the order and solemnity of religious services. So this law is clearly intended to prevent or punish people for actually disrupting a church service. But here I am, I'm outside, I'm not making a lot of noise. My protest outside the church has zero impact on what happens in the service itself. It has no direct impact on the service, and yet outrageously hypocritical, Montreal Unitarians attempted to use this section of the criminal code to force an end to my protest, or even throw me in jail. So that's just one of the many immoral, unethical, borderline criminal, and actually criminal actions that Montreal Unitarians specifically take in the world. I've been physically assaulted by some Montreal Unitarians. I'll name a few of them: Pierre Bennett, David Horan, Marlo Ellis, Kenneth Howard QC. So there's 4 Montreal Unitarians who I've been physically assaulted by. There are a few others, but those are the ones that come to mind. I've been physically assaulted by non-Montreal Unitarians. You might want to run a search on Unitarian Universalist feminazi to see how I was assaulted by a Unitarian Universalist feminazi in Toronto. And I don't use the term feminazi lightly. I don't throw that word around to describe all feminists. I use it to describe the extreme, basically extreme feminists, and especially those that are open to committing violence to ensure that their views are respected, shall I say. So I'm just going to walk back and forth here. A few people have gone into the church, and just going to display a couple of picket signs. In my right hand, I have one saying "unsafe sect." Don't need to explain that, I don't think. The other side, it says Unitarian Universalist, perversion of justice sucks you, asterisk you. And well, yes, perversion of justice. I mean, we just spoke about a couple of cases of perversion of justice by both Montreal Unitarians and the Unitarian Universalist Association. I mean, there's all kinds of perversion of justice that I personally have experienced, and many other people who have complained about clergy misconduct have also experienced. That goes from just delaying justice by just basically refusing to deal responsibly with people's complaints. But perversion of justice, it has a sense of actual taking actions to actually pervert justice. So I would say, for instance, that the two things I just spoke about, misusing the criminal code to try and shut down my protest in front of the church, or misusing the criminal code to try and intimidate me into removing blog posts that tell the truth about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers are clear perversions of justice, and specifically perversions of the criminal justice system in efforts to suppress, my ability to tell the truth about Unitarian Universalist injustices, abuses, and hypocrisy. But there are many other perversions of justice that I could speak about, but for now we're just going to circulate here. And so it is, as I said, Sunday, March 26th. It's nice and sunny, a little cold, but not too cold. Somewhat windy, blowing my picket signs around. I might have to stow away the freestanding picket signs if they keep getting blown around, but they're okay for now. Let's have a look at the freestanding ones. We got Church of the Image Tarnishing Ministers. That originally was singular and referred specifically to Reverend Ray Drennan, the former minister of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, but in that the current minister, Reverend Diana Rollert has tarnished the image of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, to say nothing of Unitarian Universalism more generally herself, and considering the fact that there are, in fact, quite a number of other image-tarnishing Unitarian Universalist ministers, and the sign could be broadened out to, the word church there could apply to the larger Unitarian Universalist religious community, not just the Unitarian Church of Montreal. Well, then we got quite a number of image-tarnishing ministers. I would say that UUA President Reverend Dr. Peter Morales has seriously tarnished the image of the whole Unitarian Universalist religious community by hiring Stikeman Elliott, barristers and solicitors litigation lawyer, Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe, to falsely accuse me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel and Bill Cosby-style clergy sex abuse cover-up and denial legal bullying. So yes, and that's just one way. Peter Morales has tarnished the image of Unitarian Universalism. There are others, but misusing blasphemy law to hide pedophilia and rape is outrageous. And not only does it disregard and violate most, if not all, of Unitarian Universalism's 7 principles, but it betrays a centuries-old tradition of Unitarians and Universalists of opposing blasphemy laws. Unitarians and Universalists have been opposing blasphemy laws for centuries because they were often on the wrong end of blasphemy laws. They were often persecuted and prosecuted for blasphemy because of their heretical stances on Christianity. The Unitarians denied the doctrine of the Trinity and thus were considered to be blasphemers by Trinitarian Christians. And they may have been also accused of blasphemy for various other doctrinal differences, but that's one of the main ones. And then the Universalists were also considered to be heretics because they preached a universal salvation. They preached that everyone was saved by the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross, which does not actually align with mainstream Christian theology. So Universalists were also sometimes prosecuted for blasphemy. So as a result of this, Unitarian Universalists, have always opposed blasphemy laws. So what do they do in the 21st century? They hire Stikeman Elliott, barristers and solicitors, to threaten me with being charged with the criminal act of blasphemous libel, which is Canada's blasphemy law, for, and this is their words, and basically bullshit, making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. Yes, as I said to Maitre Coulombe in responding to that accusation, yes, I've blogged about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists, but the few cases that I actually blogged about were cases where the pedophiles and rapists in question were charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. So they weren't exactly unfounded, were they? So you tell me where the unfounded blog posts are, and I'll decide what to do, Well, of course, I never heard from Maitre Marc-Andre Coulombe again after explaining to him that as far as I was concerned, there were 0 unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engaged in such despicable crimes on my blog. Just very truthful blog posts about Unitarian Universalists who'd actually been charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. And the fact of the matter is, then and even now, I haven't blogged about a certain number of other cases of Unitarian Universalist ministers or Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers being charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. And then, of course, there's the cases of pedophilia and or rape and or other serious very serious forms of clergy sexual misconduct that, I have yet to blog about. I know about a certain number of other cases where Unitarian Universalist ministers have been accused of such things, but not necessarily charged, tried, and convicted of them. I like to stick to blog posts about cases where people have been charged, tried, and convicted because it reduces the possibility of being accused of slander, libel. I mean, that's why I limited what I had to say, because I wanted to avoid any kind of libel or slander accusation. So I was very, very careful to blog only about cases where Unitarian Universalists had actually been charged, tried, and convicted and sentenced to jail terms and actually spent some time in jail for such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, so that the Unitarian Universalist religious community couldn't accuse me of libel with any kind of credibility. And what do? They accuse me of not just ordinary civil libel, but blasphemous libel, which is essentially blasphemy. The term blasphemous libel is just a fancy way of saying blasphemy. They're essentially saying that it's, the term blasphemous libel certainly implies that what you're saying is A, blasphemous, and B, libelous. In other words, untrue. But no, what I said about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists was by no means untrue. So we see a little police car at the end there going up. It actually came by, and then it sort of did a kind of a U-turn there. Then it went away. There was a possibility, and it might have been here to interfere with my protest. But as I've said in other cases, in fact, the last time there was an SPVM police intervention